Hi, it's Colin Cowherd. Do you want the best content on the internet? Go watch cats playing on tiny pianos. It's really good. But if you want arguably the second best content, subscribe. He knows Bill Belichick better than anybody. I first have to start with this, Ian O'Connor. So Belichick and Brady met for 23 minutes after the game, according to reports. Just a hunch. Your thought about, if not the topic, just the tone of that meeting. Are you surprised when you heard that?
A little bit that Bill would go into a winning locker room after a loss and really talk to anybody. It's not really in character, but I think it's actually a good thing. And maybe when Tom Brady is done playing and Bill Belichick is done coaching, that they'll come together and have a better relationship than really they had at the end of their time together in Foxborough. And there's no question, no matter what they're saying, I mean, based on the hundreds of people I talked to for my book, I think Seth Wickersham could say the same thing for his book, that there were issues at the end of their time in New England that certainly led to that divorce. And so I think there's been so much focus on what went wrong and maybe not enough focus on what amazing things they accomplished together, that maybe that was part of their conversation tonight. That, hey, we need to get back to what we did together and maybe talk a little bit more about that. And I have a feeling in retirement, they'll be closer than they were in the final years in New England. And I hope that's the case.
You know, it's really interesting. Brady has a great sense of timing. He exits the AFC as it has Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and even Derek Carr now under Gruden is playing at a Pro Bowl level. And he goes to the NFC where, Aaron may be moving over to different conferences. Russell Wilson could be on the move in the next couple of years. He's not happy. He's a major cap hit for Seattle. It's interesting. I watched Mac Jones, and I thought he played so well, considering the magnitude of the moment, the anxiety, the monsoon, the dearth of skill players. They spent $300 million. I still don't see it on offense much, Ian. But it is interesting as I watch that, and I think about his contemporaries in the AFC. I think, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, I just don't see this as a championship team in the near future. There's a hole in this Belichick regime, and I think it surfaced 4 years ago, Ian, and I think Tom was frustrated. When Jacoby Myers, an undrafted wide receiver, is your primary weapon, you don't correct that in a draft. I just looked at Mac and I thought, bravo, a virtuoso performance by a kid. But this is not close to a championship team to me.
I agree with that, Colin. I would say this. I agree with everything you said. However, their one fluky loss against Miami in that final game, that final regular season game of Brady's final season, from maybe hosting the AFC title game, the Ravens got upset that year, and so they weren't that far away from going back to the Super Bowl. I understand that they lost that playoff game to the Titans at home and didn't play well, but losing that Miami game really sort of set them up for failure in the postseason. And Brady's numbers had come down, and obviously he didn't have any playmakers, but they weren't far away from winning another championship, really, the way I looked at it. So I think his departure was really more about the stylistic differences between Belichick and Bruce Arians. He wanted to go play for somebody who would be fun to play for. And Belichick,
sure.
Somebody close to Brady said that Tom was basically just Belichick out after 20 years. And when your head coach treats every single day like it's game 7 of the World Series after 20 years, that's tough to deal with. So he went to go play for a guy who wanted to play 9 holes of golf after practice and grab a beer or 2 or 3. And so he's having a lot of fun doing that. But it probably was a very smart decision to get out of that conference when he did. And Mac Jones did everything he could tonight to win this football game. And as a rookie, hey, Tom Brady didn't even play as a rookie, threw 3 passes.
That's right.
I was there the day that Mo Lewis put that hit on Bledsoe and Brady trotted in. And early on, it wasn't like Tom Brady was a superstar. You could say that Mac Jones is ahead of where Brady was.
Oh, no question. No question.
So, but you're right. James White being gone now, that isn't going to help Mac Jones at all. He's a guy who can still make some plays and do different things. He's gone. And you look at the playmakers and say, where are they? And it could be a long haul. Now, having lost 3 home games already, Tom Brady did not lose 3 home games. He lost 2 in that first year, but he didn't lose 3. And so it's going to be tough sledding in that division with Buffalo and in that conference, no question about it.
Listen, I think Bill's aware of his legacy, and I just don't know how long. Because I don't think Tom's going to line up Super Bowls. I think he's going to be challenged in the NFC going forward. I don't know if he'll win another one. But I do wonder how long Bill wants to face Josh Allen and beat his head up against the wall, because that Buffalo franchise now, top to bottom, appears to be the class of that division for some time. I mean, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, the front office is excellent. They're equipped for a long run. Do you think, starting to go 8-9, 9-8, a couple more years, and Bill may just say, I'm going to go to Jupiter, Florida and play golf?
It's a possibility. I think he at least wants to leave this franchise in a state where it's competitive and can make a playoff run or 2. I don't know if that's possible. I think that the last thing he wants to do is walk away after a series of 7 and 9s. So right now, what is he? He's 8-12 without Tom. He was 5-13 in New England with Bledsoe before Brady took over. So I think at the very least, he wants to get back to a point where they can win a wild card, be 10-7. And I wouldn't rule that out for this year just yet. It looks like it's going to be difficult to get there. But I think he's going to coach another 3, 4, 5 years to get to that point. Initially, Colin, he said he would not coach into his 70s like Marv Levy did, but then he changed his mind about that. He's a young 69 and not a guy with a lot of hobbies, likes to play a little golf. Obviously, he's got the boat and spend some time on Nantucket. But outside of that, he was, as Robert Kraft told me years ago, he was put on this earth to win football games. It's now become a lot more difficult to win those games without Tom Brady as quarterback. And I still think that Brady always planned on being a one uniform lifer in Boston, in New England, like Ted Williams, Larry Bird, Bill Russell. I think that was his plan. It just changed because the relationship went south in the final years with Belichick. And tonight may be a step toward a better relationship in the future. And again, I think that would be a very good thing.
Ian, the one thing from Seth Wickersham's book, I have not read it. I got the excerpts, and they were pretty damning toward Belichick. One I thought was really personal when Robert Kraft, apparently at some high-end retreat with billionaires, said, I got to leave this meeting and go hang out with the most miserable blank in my life. And I could see Belichick reading that and thinking, I've probably doubled your net worth. Was that the kind of thing that would expedite an exit, or do you think Bill is strong enough that just flies past him? It doesn't stick. It doesn't land for him.
I don't think that one landed for him. I think that Robert Kraft may have offered an explanation. Hey, I was kidding around. I didn't really say it that way. And I don't think that is going to have really much to do with Belichick in terms of how long he's going to coach the Patriots or coach at all. I think Belichick understands that there are a lot of people around the league who don't really like him. And he's never been all that close to Robert Kraft. In that organization, the relationship that was a close one was between Kraft and Brady. That was sort of a transformational relationship. The transactional relationship was Belichick and Kraft and Belichick and Brady. That was always transactional. And so I don't think that comment really changes anything. Belichick doesn't really care. He just wants to win. And if you think he's a blank, then so be it. As long as you're paying me to win football games and leave me alone for the most part, which I think Robert Kraft has pretty much done. I think the one time that Kraft interceded was in keeping Tom Brady in the organization and not letting Belichick turn it over to Garoppolo like he wanted to do. But that turned out to be a good move. Kraft was right because Brady won another Super Bowl. So I think that I would be surprised if Bill Belichick allowed a comment like that to dictate what he would do with his future.
You know, I said this week on my radio show, I said, the Beatles had Lennon was the academic, Paul McCartney was more the global visionary, and Ringo Starr lightened up the room, and that's necessary. And I said, you get with the Patriots, Belichick's the academic, Kraft's the visionary, and Tom is willful but joyful. That he needs to be hugged. He loves to be loved. He doesn't work with anger as well as he does joy. In fact, Wickersham in his book talked about a study that had been commissioned by Belichick on Tiger Woods, Michael, Kobe, and that Tom was different. And it's interesting, when I read that, I thought that's interesting that Bill was almost trying to figure out the maze of Brady's aspirational sort of motives. Do you see, and as I was touching on last week, this was bound, like the Beatles. These were three different cats. This was bound to be a little surly at the end. I mean, even after your incredibly in-depth book on Belichick, are you really surprised by any of this going forward? Surprised how it ended?
I thought that Tom Brady would never leave. So I guess in that context, I am surprised. I thought that he would put up with Belichick, and because he couldn't see himself playing for another franchise. I covered as a columnist in New York Derek Jeter's career. And at the end, it got ugly with the front office with Brian Cashman, and he wanted to leave. He just wanted to get away from Cashman and some others in that organization, but he could not go play for another team and in a different uniform. And I thought Tom Brady would basically feel the same way, but he broke away from that. I guess in the long run, I think that Belichick probably doesn't get enough credit for keeping Tom Brady there for 20 years. It's not easy to keep an elite athlete, driven as Brady is, in place for 20 years. So that relationship, we focus a lot on the ending, and it was a bad ending, no question about it. Bill could have done a lot more to try to keep him. He could have offered him a long-term contract. I had a conversation with Tom Brady 4.5 years ago, and so he was 39, about to turn 40. And I had about a 45-minute phone conversation with him. And we talked about how long he wanted to play. We were talking past 45, 46, 47, 48. And I said, what about 50? I know it sounds crazy. And he said, it's a great question. We'll see. So Bill has known for a long time that Tom was going to play and play and play and play some more. So there was a lot of time to figure out, okay, this guy is someone we want to keep here in the long term. We should offer him a long-term contract. They never did. So he goes and wins a Super Bowl for somebody else. So that to me is the only surprise. And I thought that Brady, despite his feelings for Belichick, despite the fact the relationship had gone off the rails, that he just couldn't go play for somebody else. And he did very successfully.
All right, we don't want to take any more of your time. It's one of the great days in New York. The Jets, the Giants, the Yankees. Isn't it amazing? The Dodgers and the Giants, Yankees, Sox. These one-game playoff scenarios make absolutely no sense to me at all. It's incredible that it got past some baseball commission, that everybody raised their hand and approved the idea of eliminating the Dodgers and the Yankees after these, the turbulence in the Yankee season. They were losing streaks, winning streaks, dead, alive. I don't know how baseball came to this conclusion. Well, one final question, because a lot of people were watching baseball today. I don't buy this Yankee team. The Dodgers played well all year. They overcame lots of injuries. This Yankee team feels so hot and cold to me. Are they capable of, let's say they win Wednesday, are they capable of winning a playoff series?
I think so. The problem is they're going to be matched up with Tampa Bay. I don't know if I see them beating Tampa Bay in a 5-game series, but I do think they'll win in Fenway Park. It's funny, the last time there was a one-and-done Red Sox-Yankees game in Fenway Park, I was a high school freshman. Bucky Dent hit that home run. Yeah. It was a play-in game, not a playoff game. And so I do think I like the Yankees to beat the Red Sox, but to beat the Rays in a 5-game series without home field advantage, I don't see that happening. The Yankees have the talent to do it. And when you have Stanton and Judge playing at a high level, you have two monsters like that in the middle of your lineup with the green monster. I think that could be a real problem for the Red Sox. But to me, it's the Yankees getting out of the wild card game, advancing to the division series, and then losing to the Rays. I think that's the most likely scenario.
Ian, go to bed. You're a good dude. You had a million things to do today. I haven't reached out enough. I'd love to get you on when you have more time and it's earlier. Thank you so much.
Hey, anytime for you, Colin. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.